Dan the Man Wilson turns around the entire Mariners season. Jerry DiPoto so toxic that he deserves to get fired. What will happen in 2025? What will happen in 2024? I think I have the key to turning this whole thing around. All that and more on this episode of the Vintown Mariners podcast, the number one Mariners podcast in the world that is recorded in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I am Vintown, and let's talk some Mariners baseball. Week one of the Dan Wilson era probably has to be considered a success. There's been 6 games, 4-2 record. Did what they had to do in both series. Won both series. Could have won other games, but the same old problems were popping up. Just a couple like hot takes about Dan. I think he bunts way too much. I think he loves bunting. I think he's crazy for bunts. He'd rather see someone bunt than like go home and kiss his wife. He loves bunts that much. No, but with bunts, okay, here's what I think. There's Jorge Polanco, squared up for a bunt, got hit by a pitch. He shouldn't be bunting. He's been one of the best hitters. There's Cal Raleigh. He squared up for a bunt, got hit by a pitch. He's one of their best hitters. He shouldn't be bunting. He's one of the most powerful. And then Julio, who shouldn't be doing it just because of his ankle. Like, quick jerk running, like that's what he's not supposed to do. That's something you need to do on bunts. You need to dig. So yeah, I know this team has to do whatever they can to get runs. It's a big issue, but I just don't think that's the way. Outs are your most precious resource. If you're doing a sacrifice bunt, you're giving that one of those resources away. I believe if you play for one run, that is all you'll ever get. And sometimes this team only needs one run. I don't think it's like a never thing, but it happened a lot. And maybe it's just like, hey, I'm Dan Wilson, I'm your new manager. You all are going to pay your dues. Everyone is going to have to bunt on this team. And he's proving it. Just proving like their new way of doing it. I don't think, but if it's not a smart way, I don't know if that makes sense. He's also been kind of platoon resistant, not pinch hitting late in games when you have these guys. There was another game where he had listed Luke Raley as the leadoff man, a lefty, against Robbie Ray, a lefty. Luke Raley has never shown that he can hit lefties in his career, but he was not only in the lineup, which maybe he can develop that. Maybe he can develop that skill. But he was not only in the lineup, but he was leading off, which I think is like giving away outs, giving away the first out of the game. The batter who will see the most plate appearances in the game is the leadoff hitter. Just giving that up. It ended up being where Rayleigh's sick, Dylan Moore comes in and all works out. All's well that ends well. But, those kind of decisions are decisions that I don't think either Scott wouldn't have made them because he believes in the platoon splits, or he wouldn't have been allowed to make them. So that is something interesting, something to monitor. But hey, Dan seems like a great guy. He's getting results, and it's what's done is done. I was a Scott fan, still a Scott fan because his statement when he left, all class. He could, I think Ryan Davis said this in his piece. He's like, he could burn every bridge and be right to do so, and everyone would be on his side, but he won't do that. He's too professional for that. He's also like holding up his charity events that he was going to do and like matching donations. Like, it's great. I do think it's weird. I mean, I know dogs, cats, they need to be spayed or neutered, otherwise the population will run wild or whatever, but it's always weird when like that's your charity. Like why don't you get into like feeding unhoused people? I think that would be good. Not that loving animals is, forget this. Forget I said this. But what's done is done. Dan's the manager. And I'm just going to be monitoring these things. I don't think some of them are the best. And we'll just have to see. We'll have to see what it turns out to be. But unfortunately, in Mariners land, It's always something else. It's always something else. I realized this week why I try to keep a healthy distance from this team and why I recommend anyone who cares about this team to also keep a healthy distance. Being on Twitter, being on Reddit is not good for your mental health, anyways, but especially when it comes to the Mariners, because there'll always be something. There was Divish on the Marine Layer podcast uh, saying something that I just think people haven't really thought of. It's not that, it's not like something he broke some secret, but like last year, the Mariners traded away Suarez because he made too much money, and used and Kellenick used him to get pieces. And then what Divish says is he wouldn't be surprised if Logan Gilbert's traded for a bat because that's the only way you can get a bat if you won't sign a free agent. That's true, but nobody wants to hear that. And they said, well, if their payroll is too high again, they'll just trade Randy Arozarena. And nobody wants to hear that. But like that's the same move as trading Suarez. That's the same move as the Marco Gonzalez, Jared Kelenic, Evan White trade. You're just like giving away valuable stuff because you don't want to pay it, and that's something they do. And then the other thing is Danny O'Neill. Danny O'Neill, I feel like I've been reading from afar for a very long time. He works at Tacoma News Tribune now, and he just wrote this like takedown of Jerry DiPoto that felt so personal, and it felt so just like Jerry DiPoto Haters Club #1. If Jerry DiPoto has one hater, it's Danny O'Neill. If Jerry DiPoto has no haters, Danny O'Neill is no longer with us. Like that's how this came off. I'll just read a couple things from it. Where he gets to his main point, he says, "The reason I think they need to get rid of the general manager who's rebuilt this farm system is because I think Jerry DiPoto has become toxic, and he ain't addicted to him. He knows he's toxic, but he's not addicted to him." Sorry, bad joke. He writes, "Two examples stand out to me. The first happened relatively early in DiPoto's tenure with the Mariners after the organization gathered some anonymous feedback from employees to look for ways to improve management. I don't know the specifics of whether this was a human resources initiative or something confined to baseball operations. My understanding is it wasn't even explicitly a performance review for DiPoto, but rather an attempt to help managers and executives improve. DiPoto's initial reaction was to ask who made the criticisms. Kevin Mather, who was then president of the team and got fired for being racist or whatever, that was my own addition, had to tell DiPoto that the point of the exercise was to try and learn from the feedback rather than push back against it, which I guess Jerry didn't like. His other example is about when the Mariners traded Kendall Graveman. Everyone's so pissed. And he didn't come down and talk. There's anonymous player that was quoted back then. He said, he hasn't come down here. He sits up in his suit playing fantasy baseball and rips apart our team without telling us anything. Jerry acted like this was an isolated incident, and he basically just said it was Kyle Seager. So I think I said this last time, another great job just like pushing away Kyle Seager when Kyle Seager's younger brother is one of the best players in the league and an upcoming free agent. Like, good job. But then Danny O'Neill says he regularly interviewed DiPoto when he worked at Cairo, 7:10 a.m. He found Jerry to be smart and very engaging, but he's also thin-skinned and holds on to slights, both real and perceived. He has lashed out at people I know in private conversations, or emphatically ignored them because they'd ask a question he deemed overly negative or unfair. He views dissent as something to be squashed. When you leave a person like that in charge of a team for 9 years, you wind up with a situation where anyone who pushed back has been pushed out, and those who are left know better than to speak up." Like that line right there, that's a hitter. That's a hitter. Like, he doesn't like him. He clearly does not like him. And I don't know if he's wrong. I mean, That lines up with a lot of things we know. I think when I think about Jerry DiPoto and Jerry DiPoto getting fired, I think, well, who else are they going to get? What else are they going to do? Because like the stuff about talking to the players after the trade, do you think that anyone in the Rays does that? Do you think the Giants do that? Or the Dodgers? Do you think the Dodgers, uh, Andrew Friedman, I believe, is in charge of the Dodgers? Do you think he came down to the clubhouse and says, "Hey, here's why we released Jason Hayward. We know you all liked him." No, it's just like keep moving forward. And I'm not saying that to defend Jerry, but I just don't. This is how front offices are run now. It sucks. Danny's right. Like, if he's an asshole and he created a toxic environment, then yeah, he should go. But I just don't know if that opposite exists. Baseball ops people are playing a different game, and it is a game to them. Players are chess pieces on the board to them. It sucks. It sucks that that's the way baseball is now. But they'll trade away anyone. They won't keep people to the bitter end. Like what Divish said about Logan Gilbert potentially leaving in a trade because he didn't sign the long-term extension or whatever. He's going to get expensive. Like, if I was running the team, I would keep Logan Gilbert to the bitter end. If he wants to be a free agent, doesn't want to resign, that's fine. But like for the next, what is it, 4 or 5 years, we're going to pay you whatever they say to pay you, and we're going to have one of the best starters in the league. That's all there is to it. Like, people love him. He could be a Mariners legend. We need to replenish these Mariners legends at some point. Because you burn the bridge on Seager. Cano is no one. Felix is he's still one of them. But that's like all you got. Can't keep running everybody off. Nelson Cruz, yeah, sure, he signed the 1-day contract and retired, but like the Mariners are probably like third on his list of teams, behind the Rangers, probably the Orioles too. I don't know. So I don't know. You want to build something new, build something new, and that's by keeping players. But that's not the bill of goods that Jerry sold this ownership. He says he could keep it churning, keep it cheap, keep it churning. We don't have to keep paying this guy. We can trade him away and have a new guy who's less expensive. And maybe they can. Maybe that's the way that they get to be like a World Series contending team. But I don't know. Is he the best one to do that? I'm really getting to the point where I'm just over it. I'm sick of the drama. Uh, here's another thing Danny O'Neill says in his article. If everything else was okay, I'd be inclined to say DiPoto should get a little more time to see if he can improve the offense, or at least put together a lineup that doesn't strike out a billion times. Except, like, when he says that, it's like he has had 10 years in the job. It's not like, just one more year, I'll get it right. I do think they've improved. They've gotten, like, they were bad at hitter development before, and now they might be better. If you look at some of these guys in the lower minors, they might be better now. They might not do like a Nick Franklin again. That was his name, right? Nick. Anyway, yeah, they're getting better at it. They're getting better at identifying talent and helping it develop and move through the system. They're getting better at that. But like, maybe just keep the guys who are doing that, and get a new president if he's that bad. If he's this bad of a guy, really. I think my main fear with the idea of firing Jerry DiPoto is not that this development train will stop going, or we'll never have a good pitcher again because Jerry DiPoto is like the genius that gave him to us. It's really nothing like that. It's really like, if you put this job up for hire, and let's say you don't just like get Jerry out of there and go Justin, and I can't remember his name, the head of scouting, the assistant GM. Andy McKay. You know, if you actually clean house, if you clean house of these guys, uh, what are those interviews going to look like? The interviews are going to look like, hey, you know how Jerry DiPoto did it? I can do it better and I can do it for cheaper. And that's who they're going to want to hire. You know, if the guy comes in there and says, hey, like, love what you're doing, I think we should keep doing that, but I also want to spend an extra $50 million a year and we're going to win the World Series. These guys aren't going to go for that because these guys all hit this like lottery. They all worked for Nintendo or Microsoft or maybe Amazon or, you know, another tech company in the executive suite where they have stock options. They mean millions of dollars, not because they have like a talent or anything, because they studied the right thing in college, and then they got the right job out of college, and then they like finagled their way to get a good job with stock options. Like that's what it is. And you know, they made big money, good for them. But now they just want to take their big money and put it in this team and they want to cash out every single year. That's what it is. Like they don't want to take a risk. They never took a risk in their life. You know, this is not a risk to them. And baseball doesn't force you to take a risk. They don't force you to go out and get the best hitter available. They should. They should. It should be like last year. Okay, Mariners, you finished one game out of the playoffs. You have to offer Shohei Ohtani $700 million. You have to. It's the rules. You know, nationalize baseball. I don't know. Just spitballing here. But these guys who own the team, that's not what they want. They want people in the stands, dummies getting excited for the team maybe making the playoffs, but never being bad enough where it's like the White Sox where you can't even give away tickets. You know, always just around, always a fireworks night, whatever. Just always something to pay attention to, something not to forget about. A quality team. And the thing with Jerry DiPoto is he knows that. And he's done a good job of following their rules, but he hasn't done a good job of turning that into a playoff team. And whether they make the playoffs or not, if they make the playoffs, they will have the worst record of any team in the playoffs, AL or NL. That's an indictment. You know, if you get lucky, Astros struggle, get hot, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if the Mariners go all the way to the World Series. It's time to move on. I don't you know, this is what I think was funny about Danny O'Neill's article and a lot of other people I've seen, like when when everyone's talking about Scott Service, oh my God, I would never wish for someone to lose their job. I would never wish for that. But I think Scott Service has to go. So many people said stuff like that. Hey, I never want to wish for some family to lose their source of income. I never want to wish for someone to lose their job, someone who's probably made millions of dollars. I would never want them to lose their job. But Scott Service has to go. This team will never win with Scott Service. None of that exists with Jerry DiPoto. Everyone is like, hey, this guy is like a toxic jerk. He needs to get out of here. We hate him. We hate him so much. And that's probably all it needs to be. You know, I enjoyed the Jerry podcast back in the day, before it just became a we don't actually say anything podcast. Um, I like a lot of moves. I love a lot of the players they bought in because that's what this is always about. That's what needs to be about. It's just the players, just the team, just the guys on the field and the games they play. And you know, Julio, Logan, George Kirby. I mean, come on, come on. Brian Wu is like my favorite player now, or Cal Raleigh is my favorite player now. I don't. They're all like I love them all. Uh, like it's a good roster. It's not great. It's good, but and he deserves a lot of credit for that. Jerry DiPoto does, but like it just can't go on like this. Last year you had Cal Raleigh saying stuff at the end of the season, and then he was maybe made to apologize. Like that stuff, just let's just move on. Maybe just have a guy that doesn't make you want to complain about him and doesn't, make everyone in the media like just like root for your downfall. Like I think that's probably I don't know. Danny O'Neill, like on after this article, which let me just say one thing about this article. Keeps calling Jerry the GM. Jerry is the president of baseball operations. Okay? Justin Hollander is his GM. Justin Hollander is catching strays with this headline when you say the Mariners have a GM problem. Leave Justin Hollander out of it. Uh, anyway, like, I think it's just time. I would love to see Jerry back in the game for like some other team, but it's time for Seattle, Seattle Jerry to maybe move on. But that's enough talking about the president of baseball operations, because, like I said, I do not care. I do not care. I just want to talk about the guys on the field, especially now that we're past the trade deadline. We're just about past the waiver deadline. It's like the team is on the field, you know, at the in the Hoosiers, my when they play with four. My team is on the court. This is it. You can the time to complain about Rojas is over. I I've complained about him, but he's the third baseman till the season ends. Our team is on the field, so let's figure out how this team can win the division. And it's very simple. I poured over the stats. I went deep, deep, deep in Baseball Reference. I like hacked it. I was inside of it. Like in Hackers, I was like surfing the information superhighway, and I came up with it. I found it. I found the key, and the key is they score four runs, score four runs, score four, win more, score four, dance more. These guys love dancing. These guys love to dance when they win. Score four runs, and you'll win a lot more games. The league average run per game 4.43. The Mariners average 3.95. Like I've talked before about how Safeco Field suppresses run scoring. Not that much. Not that much. They could be over four per game. They could average over four per game. Uh, Mariners need to score four. How badly do they need to score four? 55 of their 68 wins. Right now, they are 68 and 66. 55 of the wins have come scoring four or more runs. 55. Of their losses, 19 of those losses would be wins if they had scored four runs. Those are 3-2 games. Imagine giving up 3-1, 3 runs, and losing 19 times. That happened. That has happened. Another 8 losses. If they would have scored 4 runs, they would have tied the game. So that's a game where 8 times they've held a team to 4 runs. So if they could have scored 4 runs, maybe extra innings, maybe something happens. That's 27 games, okay? 27 games. It's not going to happen every time. But let's say they get there somehow. In 10 of those games, they scored 4 runs. They would be tied with the Yankees right now for the best record in the American League. The New York Yankees. Tied with the New York Yankees for the best record in the American League. Second best record in all of baseball. To go 10 and 17 instead of 0 and 27. 4 runs, 4 runs. I'm not. The stat on the game yesterday was the Mariners are league best, like 46-4 or something like that when they score 5 runs. I'm not talking about 5 runs. 5 runs is different. I'm talking about 4. The league average. The league average. Slightly below their average. That's all I'm asking for. Since June 19th, when Scott Service blew the 10-game lead, just freaking blew. Scott Service did it all himself. 12 of the losses in that time would have been wins with 4 runs. 5 would have went to extras. I'm talking if they have won 6 games, 6 of those 17 games, we were talking about a 74-win team. They would be the ones with a 3-game lead over the Astros. They would be pretty comfortably in a playoff position and in the 3rd wild card. Like, this is what I was talking about when Scott was fired. It's not his fault. The team cannot score. But just score 4 runs. Just do it. If they can score 4 runs in this next little patch here, they're going to win a lot of games. We've got 3 against the Angels, 4 against the Athletics, and then 3 against the Cardinals. All those teams are out of the playoffs. Say what you want about the way the Athletics offense has been playing. They're 58-75. The Angels are 54-79. The Cardinals, they're closer to 500, but they have a negative 57 run differential. They're not a good team. These are 10 games where the Mariners will be favored by the betting line in every single game. Whatever projection system you want to use, they will be favored in every single one of these games. They have to get it done. I don't care how they do it. I don't care if they get 3 and then bunt home the 4th run. They just got to do it. So that's my pitch. That's my pitch to Dan Wilson. Scott Service had this thing. It was doesn't matter, get better. And then they did like the Ted Lasso thing for a year. Hated that. But it was just, it doesn't matter, get better. Always try to get better. That was Scott Service's thing. I don't know if Dan is, that type of manager, but his thing needs to be score 4, win more. Score 4, dance more. Everybody wants to dance. So that's what they have to do. They have to score 4. I want to see 4 runs scored in every single one of the next 10 games. If they do that, they're going to win 8 of those games. That's it. They'll win 8 of those games if they do that. So that's what they should do. Will they do it? We'll just have to find out. We'll find out next time, because right now, this podcast is over. Thanks for listening.